Good afternoon and good morning to all the participants. Thank you very much for your interest. This is an event organized by the Fondazione Ergo. My name is Gabriele Caragnano, and I'm going to lead the event, introducing the agenda and the participants. I'm sharing the screen, and on the first page we have the agenda of the event. It's an event very much concentrated in 2 hours. A lot of interesting subjects and outstanding speakers. So we have structured the event in 3 main talks. The first one is about the exoskeletons and a project run by our foundation about the exoskeletons, we will share the most relevant output and results of that project. Following, we have the experience talks. We have the relevant participation of 3 leaders in the automotive sector. We have the participation of the Volkswagen Group, FCA Group, and General Motor Group. And the last talk, it's a science and standard talk. We will discuss and talk about the standardization projects, where we are today and what are the main directions for the future developments. But having said that, I will introduce briefly the foundation, the Fondazione Ergo MTM Italia, which is organizing and hosting this relevant event. Fondazione Ergo was established in 2012. It's a training and certification body, neutral and competent in the application of scientific management of work and ergonomics. I'm the founder of this foundation, and Fondazione Ergo is also a global partner in the One MTM Group, which is a global network disseminating the culture and techniques of work measurement, in particular of MTM, which is the most used and applied and recognized technique to measure work. Our goal is the search of a path to sustainable industrial development. We want to represent to be a think tank about industrial competitiveness, inspired by the concepts of good productivity and Bella Factory. Bella Factory is our model of the future factory. Fondazione Ergo gathers industrial groups, trade unions, and research institutes. So that's why we love to say that it's a neutral organization supporting all the stakeholders. What do we offer to the companies, to the unions, and to the universities? I'm not reading all the details, but for the companies, we are a center of excellence. Training, certification, research and development in the field of work and applied ergonomics. We offer an audit service, not a financial audit, but an operational audit, giving a full picture of the competitiveness of a manufacturing plant, considering all the aspects, from the maturity of the operating model to the ergonomic situation, environment, innovation, many aspects. Very, very advanced and interesting audit service. And we are an observatory of operational data on key parameters. So we have a wide range of benchmarks and references. To the unions, we are a neutral and competent training and qualification organization. We offer technical consultancy to the unions, and we are an observatory also for them. For your information, we are running at the moment a free training for the union reps in the plants, and we have more than 70 participants. So it's a training of 5 full days, during which we build a common understanding and a common language to manage productivity, labor productivity, and ergonomics. And for the universities, of course, we support and we sponsor research. We are a link between the industry and universities, and a place to acquire specific capabilities, a point of contact to the industry. But what are the main strategic initiatives we have? Most of them, in this case, we focus on ergonomics. We are the owner and developer of an ergonomic tool to assess and evaluate the biomechanical load in repetitive work, which is, repetitive works are typical of a manufacturing plant. And we are responsible, as you see, to continuously improve the system, to strengthen the capability of the system to assess the risk, but even more important, to improve the working method. So we have several ongoing projects. The one I will focus on is the EAWS platform setup, because this is a project which could be interesting for all of you. But I don't give for granted that you know what is EAWS. EAWS stands for Ergonomic Assessment Worksheet. The most peculiar characteristic is that EAWS is a comprehensive system. So on a unique scale, you can have an evaluation of the main factors influencing the biomechanical load. So you can evaluate body postures, action forces, manual material handling, and repetitive actions of the upper limbs on a unique system. And another important aspect is that EAWS is designed to be connected with work analysis, in particular with MTM. So MTM, which stands for Methods Time Measurement, it's a language to design and to measure work in a scientific and objective way, and can be connected with EAWS in order to have a comprehensive evaluation of methods, time, and biomechanical load. But let's go to the platform. The platform. We took several years to reach this level of maturity, and today we have a platform with a clear governance, founded on a large involvement at national groups, at national level. In several important territories, we have user groups of companies and individuals, experts, using the EAWS on the field or in the research. And those groups give inputs constantly every year to our operations manager, who gathers all the inputs and continuously improves the technical manuals. But even more important, he selects the inputs which are handed over to the technical board. The technical board is responsible for the core of the system. So they are responsible on the form, the EAWS form, the figures, the algorithms which govern the effect of the influencing factors on the overall index, expressing the level of load generated by a work cycle. In the technical board, we have the representative, of course, from the Fondazione. I am the chair of the technical board, but we have also two representatives coming from the scientific committee, where we have Professor Bruder as chairman from the Technical University of Darmstadt in Germany. As deputy chairman, we have Professoressa Roberta Bonfiglioli from the University of Bologna. We have the esimio Professor Francesco Saverio Violante from the University of Bologna, and Professor Maria Pia Cavatorta from the Polytechnic of Turin. And on top of that, or besides that, we have also two representatives coming from the EAWS User Expert Council. At the moment, we have two key groups in this council, because those companies are the largest and most intensive users of EAWS in their production system. So we have FCA and Volkswagen. So you see that the platform is a solid organization or ecosystem. I prefer to use the term ecosystem to govern the future development of EAWS. Future development means, from one side, continuously improve the training manuals and the technical content, the application experience on the field. But it means also to, the other important aim and objective of the platform is to identify the future strategic development. We are at the beginning of an important large transformation of the EAWS platform. We are working on a 3-year plan with the objective to develop a system which is useful and used by the industrial engineers to design from the very beginning ergonomic work systems, and on the other side it could be used also by the ergonomist to understand if a work system potentially can generate risks for the workers. So ergonomic design and risk assessment are the two main fields of application. And another goal we have, or objective we have in our future development, is to make EAWS a digital system. So with very clear definitions and rules to be applied also by a
So please, now we can start with the first speaker of this international event. We leave the stage to the first speaker, that is Jesus Ortiz from the EET, Institute of Technology in Italy. So please, Jesus, join us and leave you the stage.
Thank you very much. Just let me know if you can hear me and if you can see the slides. Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Jesus.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for the opportunity to do this presentation. As Raquel introduced, I'm Jesus Ortiz. I'm the head of the exoskeletons group, EXO Lab, at the Department of Advanced Robotics in the Instituto Italiano di Tecnologia. In our group, we focus on the development of exoskeletons for different applications. So in this talk, I will focus on our experience and our point of view in the development of active exoskeletons for industrial applications. So just as a quick, let's say, introduction, or let's say how exoskeletons they were initially introduced in industry, at least as a concept. The first concept of this kind of exoskeletons in the early 60s, they thought this kind of devices could assist, let's say, completely the operators, making them with high capabilities, full assistance to move heavy loads and everything. So there were a few working prototypes in the 65. We can see this example from General Electric, but they were quite cumbersome, big, so they were not usable systems. However, this kind of concept, with the years, with evolution of the technologies, we could see some examples of working prototypes in, for example, in military applications, where the workers need to lift heavy loads. And more recently, in industrial applications, this exoskeleton was presented by Sarcos. So in this case, this follows, let's say, this kind of concept of device. So it's a full powered exoskeleton. And we can find also other applications, like medical applications in rehabilitation, where also fully powered exoskeletons, they are useful. For example, in case of people with mobility impairments, where the system completely replaces the mobility of the user. So in this case, the exoskeleton is able to move completely the wearer. So this is what I describe here as a full power exoskeletons for different applications. So as you could see in these examples, they provide full support and they have high power requirements. They naturally follow the body kinematics and they actuate most of the joints. However, they, with all these power requirements, they also require high energy, battery and so on. So this was, let's say, the initial trend of exoskeletons. However, in industrial applications, this is most of the times is not the best solution. So we went to the other side of the spectrum. So we can see how this was the origin of the passive exoskeletons. So these kind of devices, they are not meant to replace completely the function of the body or to provide a full support, but only provide partial support, maybe to some body area, not to the whole body of the worker, and they do not need to have an anthropomorphic design. So one of the characteristics of these devices, they are made to be simple. So this is the way. The reason why they use passive actuation. The actuation is, or the assistance of the exoskeleton is provided by passive elements. We can see in different examples. I just put here a few examples that we can see that are now under testing or starting using in different real industrial applications. So these devices for the assistance of the lower back, the legs or the arms, they are already here. They are already in a good status, and we can see that they are starting implementing on the real world. So seeing a comparison between the two extremes, the full power exoskeletons and the passive exoskeletons, we can see how each system, they have some advantages and disadvantages. Regarding the level of assistance, of the adaptability, one of the negative points, or of the limitations of the passive exoskeletons is that they are focused on a specific task, since they are more difficult or not so easy to adjust to different tasks. However, they are very lightweight, they have a slim design, and they don't have, obviously, energy requirements. But there is an intermediate point between these two extremes. So in this presentation, I wanted to talk about our experience in the design and development of active exoskeletons. So these kind of devices, the concept is similar to the passive exoskeletons in the sense that they are not meant to provide a full support of the body weight, but they include active actuation instead of passive actuation. So this gives some flexibility to the exoskeleton to adapt to different tasks, but obviously this has also some important challenges. So trying to understand how passive exoskeletons and active exoskeletons adapt to different kind of tasks, I just put here a list of classical types of tasks we can find in industry. For example, passive exoskeletons, they adapt quite good to lifting and lowering applications. Since this kind of movement, the torque required by this kind of movement can be provided by a passive system. However, for carrying applications, that is when an operator is working with a weight on the hands, the passive exoskeletons, they typically don't provide an assistance, but they are just transparent to the user. There are other applications like pulling and pushing that they are not assisted by a passive exoskeleton, since this kind of application, since they would need some initial movement from the operator. They are also very good in applications where the operator needs to hold a static posture or forward bending, for example, or overhead work in the case of an exoskeleton. So in these cases, the passive exoskeletons, they are one of the best solutions. Active exoskeletons, they can also provide support for lifting, lowering tasks. They can adapt to different object weights. They can adapt to different kind of lifting strategies. Applications like carrying and pulling, these are applications that are currently under development, and active exoskeletons can potentially also assist to these kind of applications. Pushing is a different kind of application that probably needs some specific hardware design. In static postures like forward bending and overhead work, where the passive exoskeletons they offer very good performance, these kind of tasks can be also supported by active exoskeletons, but they don't have too many advantages as the passive ones. One of the main advantages of the active exoskeletons, but it's also one of the main challenges, is that the active exoskeleton can be used for different tasks on a single device, while the passive exoskeletons, they are usually designed for one single task. An active exoskeleton can switch between different control strategies and offer support while lifting, lowering, carrying, pulling, and different tasks, and even switch between different tasks automatically. Just to give you an overview of the main challenges when designing active exoskeletons, of course, one of the main challenges is the weight. So this is very important from the user point of view. So just to give you, let's say, a point of view from our experience, here you can see the dots with the different trunk back support exoskeletons that we have designed in the last years, and how we are reducing progressively the weight. And on the bottom, you can see two examples of passive back support exoskeletons, the BackX and the Laevo. And we can see that there is still a gap between the active systems and the passive systems. So this is one of the main challenges in how to reduce enough the weight of these systems. Considering that these exoskeletons, they have actuators, they have sensors, battery, electronics. So there are a lot of extra components that a passive device doesn't have. So, but what is the limit for active exoskeletons? What is the weight that a user will accept of this kind of instance? We know that the current prototypes, they are probably still too heavy for the workers, but they also offer more potential advantages with respect to passive exoskeletons. So we still don't know where is this limit. No? It's something we will probably discover in the last years. Also, active exoskeletons have some drawbacks. Also, they use more space, so this can be a problem depending on the application. If the worker is working in a narrow space or there are some space constraints. Also, the comfort, as I was saying, the weight is something that is very much felt by the users. No, so the weight affects very much the comfort, but also how the forces are transmitted to the body. The usability, having active exoskeleton also requires that the system is able to follow naturally the movement of the user and doesn't produce any unexpected kind of movement or say effect on the body. No, so this is something also to take into account. Also, how the user configures the system, how do we adapt the different parameters, and how to control the system. The autonomy, obviously, a passive exoskeleton have unlimited autonomy, while active exoskeleton has some limitation. No? We cannot put an infinite battery on it because this will affect the weight. And also the cost. This is something very important from the industry point of view, since obviously these kind of devices are more expensive than the passive exoskeletons, and at the end it's an important thing to take into account. I just wanted to represent here a few challenging scenarios where active exoskeletons have a good potential of application. For example, there are some applications in manufacturing where the user combine lifting with walking and even with carrying. So in this example, you can see there is a line of wheels. So the same operator needs to do an operation in all these wheels. So this means that a passive exoskeleton might be not the best solution, but an active exoskeleton could provide some important advantages. Also, in this example, the operator needs to do this kind of operations like pulling and lifting. This is a warehouse application when the user needs to pull an object from the shelf and also do some lifting. A passive exoskeleton is not able to provide support in these two tasks at the same time, while an active exoskeleton will be able to switch between these two kind of tasks. As a drawback is the limited working space. As you can see in the example picture, the space where the operator is working is very narrow, so an active system could have also some problems there. In this example, in outdoors maintenance and construction sites, one of the main issues is that the operator usually do a lot of kind of tasks and also working between tasks, maybe static postures while working in some operation and lifting. So an active exoskeleton could be a good assistance, but it's also important to consider the environment conditions. So the system should be protected against water, dust, and these things. Just to conclude, we can see how the passive exoskeletons, they are a viable solution in a lot of applications, while active exoskeletons can be potentially applicable to any task and also in tasks that combine different kind of movements. The main limitations are currently on the technologies that, as I say, the weight, but also on the control, comfort, and so on. These are still technical challenges that need to be addressed in the near future. Just to conclude, I just did a neat separation between active and passive, but of course, maybe there is not this clear solution. So there are maybe other alternative actuation combining both systems. And also a future trend of this kind of systems are of using not only rigid structures, but also using flexible and soft structures to develop these kind of systems. So I thank all my group for the work they have been doing during these years, developing this kind of systems. And thank you, everyone. I will be available for questions at the end of the event.
Thank you, Jesus, for your very interesting presentation.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for being available to the end of the event for question and answers. The next talk, the next presentation is by Professor Ralph Bruder about the relevance of exoskeletons for industrial ergonomics in manufacturing. We have a video because unfortunately Professor Bruder couldn't be present in person, but he has developed and shared with us a video in which he shares his view on the topic. So please, Rachele, go ahead with the video.
Dear Gabriele, dear international colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to also welcome you to this first EAWS International Symposium. I'm really sorry that I can't be with you on this very special occasion in real time. But as we are all living in the digital times, at least I can be with you with this kind of digital format, with this digital presentation. What I would like to do with this very brief presentation is to bring to you the perspective of the EAWS Scientific Committee, and we discussed within our scientific committee about the relevance of exoskeletons for industrial ergonomics in manufacturing. And I would like to look at two questions that me personally and also the scientific committee thinks is of interest for scientific committee when it comes to the application of exoskeletons. And the first question is, why are exoskeletons relevant for ergonomic design of workplaces? Second question, of course, as we are in a EAWS International Symposium, how to consider exoskeletons in the ergonomic assessment of workplaces. Of course, most of you joining this conference would find a lot of arguments for the first questions. Why are exoskeletons relevant for ergonomic design of workplaces? What we found of interest was looking at the second question, how to consider exoskeletons in ergonomic assessment of workplaces, that we also asked this kind of question in an automotive specific working group that we are running in Germany. When I say we, in that case, I mean we as Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors at TU Darmstadt. We are coordinating this kind of automotive specific working group. And the members of this working group mainly come from automotive industry. They are all experts in human factors and ergonomics. And we asked them, do you think exoskeletons should be considered in ergonomic assessment? And all of them answered, of course, yes, they should, because we think they are of relevance. But let me give a very brief perspective on this relevance of ergonomic design with exoskeletons, and then I will switch to the second question. So why are exoskeletons of relevance for ergonomic design of workplaces? And just looking at the different examples you will find in brochures, in presentations, in studies about exoskeletons in industry, in industrial practice, and most of the examples you will find are related to these kind of working situations where people are working with hands above head or elbow at or above shoulder level in different areas. So at the left side, you will see the typical situation we had when we did an empirical study at our lab at TU Darmstadt with exoskeleton, or in the middle, you will find a typical situation in automotive industry, or on the right side, you will find a situation where someone is working, for example, painting or doing something in a room. So why not changing this kind of unfavorable working conditions by a first step of changing the work situation or not introducing an exoskeleton. But I think you will follow that in some situations it's simply difficult or even not possible to change a working situation. Like in the example of the person just painting a room or doing something in this room setting. It's simply not possible to change this working situation. So in that case, it is of interest to have something to assist, to help this person. Or the investment to modify a work process is very high, might be too high for a company to implement an ergonomic design of the workplace, or it might take too long time to realize an ergonomic design of workplace. So, for example, looking at the automotive industry, it might take very long to change a production line. So in all of that cases, in these situations where an ergonomic design is not or even not yet possible, then the proper exoskeleton might be one of the feasible or flexible options in the hand of industrial engineers. It might be an option to change unfavorable working situation. It is not the one and only way. And of course, we still think and believe that a changing of working situation is in most cases the best solution and would be a favorable way. But in those situations where it's not possible or not yet possible, then the introduction of exoskeletons might be very helpful. And a second argument for using exoskeletons for ergonomic design, of course, exoskeletons might support those workers, the people that might have physical limitations concerning specific tasks. For them, it is of interest to have a support, and this support might be an exoskeleton. So let me come to my first conclusion. Exoskeletons are helpful tools, but in specific conditions for specific user groups. And in these specific conditions for specific user groups, they might improve ergonomic conditions. So let me switch to my second question, how to consider exoskeletons in the ergonomic assessment of workplaces. And just looking at the consideration, of course, and I think all of you might agree, we have, of course, advantage, the pros of using exoskeletons, and of course, like it is always in life, you have some disadvantage. You have cons looking at using exoskeletons in industrial practice. Just the pros, yes, in specific situation, you can reduce biomechanical loads. Of course, you can reduce, in consequence, the strain in certain muscles. If you reduce biomechanical loads, then as consequence, you will have a reduction in the strain. And then, as a consequence, it might lead to an extension of the tolerable working time, and it might reduce physical limitations of specific working group. Now, looking at the disadvantage, the cons, the reduction of strain in certain muscles might lead to an increase of muscular strain in other muscles. So it might be that you have reduction in muscles in arm or upper area, in elbow, and it might lead to an increase of muscular strain in the back area. And wearing an exoskeleton means you have additional weight. So in that case, the weight should be as low as possible, which is one of the design aims of all of the producers of exoskeletons. The climate conditions while wearing an exoskeleton are sometimes unfavorable, especially when it's warm or hot outside. And last but not least, wearing an exoskeleton might lead to difficult access to workplaces, especially if the access is very difficult or it's very difficult geometric conditions. So, if we are integrating the use of exoskeletons in ergonomic assessment, both has to be considered, the pros and the cons. That might lead, on the one side, to a decrease of the ergonomic assessment, to a decrease of criteria, and on the other side, might lead to an increase. So, and the aim of empiric study is now to find out the amount of stress induction and also the amount of stress increase that might contribute by an exoskeleton to a work assessment. And the EXO-EAWS project that will be presented by my dear colleague Francesco Violante is one of the examples where exactly what they did. They looked at the pros, the advantage, for example, the reduction on muscular strain, but at the same time, they looked also at the disadvantage, additional weight, and so on. And I think, and I hope all of you will agree, we need more of this kind of study. We need several studies to look at the pros and cons. Yes, there are some studies, and of course, we have to consider them, but I think we need more studies with the focus on the industrial setting. Most of the studies you will find in literature lab studies, and I think we have to look more on the studies performed in industry. There are some, especially in the automotive industry, and of course, now let me come to a conclusion again. Second conclusion: we need this kind of study to assess the pros and cons when we would like to introduce exoskeletons in an EAWS, for example, EAWS scheme. If we want to have a proper integration of exoskeletons in EAWS, we need this kind of study. And of course, the scientific committee of EAWS would like to welcome this kind of study. We can use this kind of studies to look at the further development of the EAWS scheme with perspective on integration of exoskeletons. Having said this, I'm at the end of this very brief and just introductory presentation on the perspective of EAWS Scientific Committee, and I would like to give you my best wishes for the rest of the symposium. I'm looking forward to meet some of you in the future in the one or the other context, and have a good time with the next presentations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to Professor Bruder. We have only 3 minutes of delay, and as mentioned in the video, Ralph introduced the next speech by Professor Violante, who will present the content and result of the EXO-EAWS project. So up to you, Francesco.
Thank you very much, and please, I would like to thank all the organizer and the fellow participants for this very interesting symposium on a hot topic, I would say, in industrial work and ergonomics. But just let me share with you my screen so that I can start to talk about the EXO-EAWS project. What is this project? This project is a project for which we, Fondazione Ergo was asked by a company who is actively developing passive exoskeleton to evaluate the effectiveness of the exoskeleton in reducing the fatigue connected with working with the hands above the head, or if you prefer, the elbow at the level of the shoulder or above the shoulder. So Fondazione Ergo teamed up with the leasing laboratory from the University of Turin, with the Politecnico of Turin, and with the University of Bologna, in which I work. The method were chosen was a study with volunteers in simulated condition, using an objective technique for assessing the amount of muscular activity during these simulated conditions in different postures that you can see here, which are describe it here, and then I will talk again about this later on. And the question, the main question for the project was, how does standard ergonomics scale, in this case the EAWS scale, change with the use of exoskeleton? So let us go to methods and result of the study. As I have told, 12 healthy volunteers, 4 different posture with shoulder abducted at 90 degree, elbow flexed at 90 degree, and elbow pronated at 90 degree, which is posture 1. Posture 2 is shoulder flexed at 90 degree, elbow flexed at 90 degree, and elbow again pronated in this position. And position 3 is this one, where you see the arm fully extended, and the posture 4 is this one with the hands fully abducted. The 2 tasks were a static task to be maintained for 6 seconds and 20 seconds, and the dynamic task, 15 repetition of movement of the shoulder. You see here the position of the electrodes, how they were positioned over the shoulder and over the arm. And here you can see the actual recording, which was done together with kinematic recording, kinematic data, in order to have the possibility to match the surface EMG signal to the different movement that the volunteer was doing. So let's see a little bit of the result. Here you see for each muscle 4 box and whisker plot, and each box and whisker plot relates to the posture. So this is posture 1, posture 2, posture 3, and posture 4. An additional hint to read this box and whisker plot is that a positive value means a reduction in the muscle activity. So you can see here that for the static trial there were no differences recorded between having this static position for 6 or 20 seconds, and most of the muscles recorded a decrease in the activity with the exoskeleton compared to the no exoskeleton. Here you can see a summary of the result that we have seen in the previous slide. You see that we got a reduction above 30%, except that this position was just below 30% in the activation of the muscle during the static activity. See the dynamic trial is these are the different postures, the same as in the static trial, and you can see a different color for concentric or eccentric activity. And again, you can see that sometimes, most of the time, there is a reduction in the activity, and sometimes you see that, for example, for eccentric contraction, there is an increase actually of activity of the different muscles. Again, this is the average for the different dynamic tests. And again, you see that there is a reduction around 30% or just below 30% or just above 20%. So how these results were translated to the EAWS system. Gabriele has given you a very brief introduction to the system. Two sections of the EAWS form were affected, and namely they were the section 1, page 2, and the section 4, page 4, with a reduction of 30% and the reduction of 25% of the score, which is given by the EAWS form for certain posture and for certain activities. So the main result of the study was that it was able to confirm that there is a biomechanical load reduction, which can be translated into the EAWS system, both for static and dynamic condition. A second result was that it is possible in this way to objectively evaluate the use of an exoskeleton. So the main exoskeleton, which was the exoskeleton for this, for which this project was conducted, has been certified by Fondazione Ergo as an effective tool. Why this? This is the most important issue about this project is that the producer of the exoskeleton was not involved in planning the experiment and running the experiment. So this is, and I come to my conclusion, that this is to say that the EXO-EAWS project has provided a framework for the third-party evaluation of an exoskeleton as a supporting device to ease tasks which involve extreme shoulder posture and which can be associated with fatigue of the worker. And this kind of support that can be provided by passive exoskeletons may be particularly welcome, as Professor Bruder has said, by workers who are already affected by shoulder disorder, for whom the certain extreme position can be very hard to keep. So I thank you very much, and I will be with you, and I will welcome question at the end of the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Francesco, for the excellent presentation. Of course, the project report is available on the website of the Fondazione Ergo if you want to have more details. Okay, this is the end of the first talks, group of talks. We get into the second one, the experience talks, in which we have the three interesting contributions from Martin Haselund, Volkswagen, from Chiara Carnazzo from FCA, and Robert Fox and Ryan Porto from General Motors. So let's start with Martin. Martin, welcome. I give you the floor, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Gabriele. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this conference and for the introduction, and hello to everybody behind the screens. I would like to talk about exoskeletons in the industrial use, and I've called, well, the subtitle for my presentation is a balancing act between expectations and practical demands, and my aim is to explain what I mean by that. Let me go back to the situation that we were facing in 2018. At that time, exoskeletons were perceived as a very innovative technology. Some of you might remember that at that time they appeared on the Gartner Hype Cycle. And well, that was reason enough for the manufacturers to use offensive marketing strategies to present these exoskeletons to all kinds of companies in the production field, which led, in our case, to an uncontrolled procurement. Exoskeletons, if you like, spilled into our plants. And you have to know that Volkswagen Group has 125 of those all over the world, with around about 330,000 workers in the direct area. So that is quite a big market. And it was very difficult from my point of view You have to understand that I'm responsible for industrial engineering from a group perspective, so overlooking 12 different brands. It was very difficult to maintain an overview. And after some time, we realized that there was still a lot of work in progress going on regarding the technology and the scientific research. So we found that there was insufficient information about the level of maturity of the equipment and also on the effects of the users. And this was really, well, for us, something that we needed to look at closely, because there was no clarity regarding the statutory framework, especially if you look at all the different countries and areas where the exoskeletons will be starting to be used, at least in pilot phases. And that resulted, not least of all, in legal and financial risks for the company. But the expectations, especially of the management in planning department and shop floor, can well be understood. On one hand, it is to decrease the health-related absence and also to integrate or reintegrate employees with reduced abilities, but probably not least of all, to reduce investment. For example, in the case of some equipment to convey the car, which in that case perhaps would not have to be turned for the worker to be able to work on the underside of the car, but to be able to work over the head. And of course, on the side of the employees, the expectation would be to perceive physical relief. So what we did was we installed an interdisciplinary working group across all the different brands in order to coordinate the activities. And that group included many different parts of the organization. We, from the industrial engineering, headed the group, but we included health and safety, HR, workers' council, legal affairs, compliance, procurement, planning, production, and so on. So you can see, even from that perspective, that getting all the information, all the people on at the table, at one table, was very complex. And also we included the manufacturers of exoskeletons. We worked together with some, actually, in even looking into research. We worked together with some research institutes and with the employers' liability insurance associations, which we call Berufsgenossenschaften in German. And our objective was to focus on human-centered explication of exoskeletons, to provide practical tools to monitor the implications of the use, to standardize the procedures in order to ensure the quality and the comparability when using exoskeletons, and also, of course, to gain efficiency through synergies between the different brands and plants when buying and implementing the exoskeletons. And this, after some time, was the picture that we brought together. So you can see it was very, very complex. If you look at the different exoskeletons at that time that had already, if you like, entered our company, and if you look at the different brands, and if you consider that one brand, for example, Volkswagen, is not just one plant, that could be up to 25 different plants, you can imagine how complex the picture was that we found and why it needed to be organized. And let me explain what we did regarding the example of the LAEVO exoskeleton. We organized a combined field and lab study in order to evaluate the use of the LAEVO exoskeleton. And we did that at Audi. We looked at some sample workplaces, in particular from assembly, logistics, and press shop. And we designed a questionnaire survey in order to document the physical discomfort, the wearing comfort, the usability, and the user acceptance. And we found that there was, in fact, a perceived relief of the workload. Rather, however, for the static work tasks, so for example, working bent forward. For example, if a worker does an assembly job in an Audi A8, which has a 4-minute takt time, will probably be bent forward into the body of the car and to carry out his tasks, rather than for dynamic tasks, for example, such as in logistics. The wearing comfort was very important for us to document. With an increased wearing discomfort, the perception of a pressure in the chest area, especially in the case of manual material handling, logistics was something that we needed to look at closely. And the usability proved to be easy to use. The operating of the system was well, easy, and the donning and doffing went very easily, so that was fine. And finally, we found that the user acceptance, we actually had 52 participants in that pilot phase, and only 30 of them finished the test. found that the wearing discomfort, especially the forces in the chest area, outweighed the perceived workload relief, which led eventually to the rejection of that particular system by the users. And as I said, we also considered, or we also looked at that particular exoskeleton in a lab study. We involved the University of Tübingen, and we did three types of physiological assessment: a muscle load measurement with surface electromyography, the assessment of body postures and joint angles with the help of body motion tracking, and compressive load measurements, so force measurement. And we fed the information that we found, that we got, also into a simulation of the human back, which is run by the University of Stuttgart, in order to understand the load on muscles, on tendons, vertebrae, and in particular on intervertebral discs. And to our surprise, we could actually find a very positive effect, in particular on the 60% relief of the load put on the intervertebral discs, and, which is also very important, no deconditioning of the back muscles to be expected, which was actually one of the points that the Workers' Council was very critical of. But regarding the load redistribution, we were able to positively, find the same effect as we did in the field assessment, in the lab assessment, by measuring the force of up to 10 decanewton, 100 Newton, in particular in the chest area, which led to severe discomfort and a slight additional pressure in the knee joint, where the exoskeleton actually, stabilizes itself. So eventually we could say that the benefit is there, as in the form of a perceived decrease of stress at tasks such as working overhead, handling load, and in bent postures. However, the requirements in order to gain the acceptance of the employees depends very much upon the wearing comfort, the ability of the exoskeleton for individualization, short time for donning and doffing, the freedom of movement, and hygiene. And in particular, that is one very important point, that the exoskeleton would support not only simple but rather complex working actions in order to prevent monotonous work routines. Regarding the effectiveness, we could not really yet say that there is a clear evidence of a preventive or a therapeutic effect, at least in the working environment that we tested the exoskeleton in. Regarding the safety, we would still wish for further research into the long-term consequences and side effects, and also the legal situation needs to be clarified. In case there is any, probably any damage done to the health of a worker, we need to understand clearly what the consequences are. We still think that exoskeletons are not really suitable for employees with physical limitations or disabilities. In an industrial environment, at least. It might be different in a medical environment. And the economic effects still have to be proven, in particular, for example, in comparison to full automation. So this is really why I called this presentation a balancing act. There are definitely some benefits visible. However, we still have fundamental issues which need to be answered. The so-called top principle. So first of all, technical measures, then organizational measures, and finally only personal measures still remains to be the premise for ergonomic solutions, and not the other way around, at least to our understanding. And scientific evidence is needed to make exoskeletons a sensible tool for human-centered work design, which we are very much looking forward to work together with some of the colleagues who were also presenting in this conference. So thank you very much at this point for your attention. And I would like to hand over back to Gabriele.
Thank you, Martin, for your very clear presentation. very well done. The next experience comes from FCA, so I hand over to Chiara Carnazzo from FCA. Please, Chiara, go ahead.
Yes, good morning everyone, or good afternoon, it depends on where you are located at the moment. And thanks, Gabriele, for introducing me and for the opportunity to briefly present today the investigation that we are carrying over as FCA into the applicability of exoskeletons. So, well, to us, the competitive advantage of an exoskeleton can be identified in the opportunity to gain in quality and productivity thanks to the effort reduction that can be deriving from the exoskeleton. But the second big opportunity is to be prepared to face the challenges deriving from the active aging. So as you can see in the chart, the one with the yellow background, the average age in Italy plants is biased on workers being more than 46 years old. So as FCA, we started our investigation with a benchmark and some testing campaign of products already on the market. Then we had some steps that I'm going to describe you that leads to the development of MATE, the Kumau passive upper limb exoskeleton. So I'm going to focus in the next charts in this part of the process. The starting point was a workshop in which workers from the production line were involved. Indeed, during previous testings, we figured out how much the involvement of final user is fundamental. So the design has been based on final user needs, and operators physically create in a mannequin the solution that they ideated during the day, during the workshop. Our experimental protocol to test prototypes, but also commercial devices, includes 3 lab tests, figure from A to C, and one task performed to simulate the target application implant. Each task you see was repeated with and without the exoskeleton, and we collect data of the 2 conditions. The objective of the protocol and of the experimental campaign is to estimate the percentage of users that positively are affected by the usage of exoskeleton, and to evaluate the benefits in terms of performances like time of execution, ease of execution, precision, and fatigue. So to go deeper in the task, as a first lab task was performed to evaluate the potential benefit on muscular fatigue by asking the operator to hold a static posture until his will. Then the second task was about manual material handling, and basically the operator was supposed to pick a component and place it at the shoulder level and repeat the same action, as you can see in the video. This task was performed in order to highlight possible restriction in movements. And then the precision task, letter C, in which we asked the operator to literally draw a line within a preset path on the wall. And this allowed us to observe the behavior during a precision task with a significant static load on shoulder joint. And then the last one, the last task, wanted to emulate the target application implant. So we asked to insert some components like pins in the underbody to simulate activities done in the assembly line when applying, for example, belly pants, or to simulate the gluing activity like the real one performed in the paint unit in the paint shop. What we find out is that the major part of the users were positively affected by the use of exoskeletons. and they increase their performance. For example, looking at the static fatigue task, you can see that 94% of people increased their performance by using the exoskeleton. But not only that, because besides that, also their perception of exertion decreased, as you can see from data here collected of muscular fatigue and Borg scale. So the exoskeleton mate was then used for a diffuse and more prolonged usage in the final destination. Now I'm going to focus on what we call the voluntary rollout, so the usage for a test in the production assembly line. And also in this case, we preferred to set up a protocol of introduction, having an onboarding section followed by a training one, then by the usage, and to conclude with a follow-up. And the onboarding section was dedicated to each plant in order to present the exoskeleton and to allow workers to, let's say, subscribe for their 1 week prolonged test. At the beginning of each week of usage, some hours are, let's say, dedicated to each workers for a training section. That includes, besides the introduction of how the device can be used, very important, who are the reference person in plant in case of question or issue during the usage. And then with an incremental plan, the operator used the device during his usual working activity. So the first day, the exoskeleton was used for 2 hours, the second day for 4 hours, and then for the full shift for the remaining part of the week, so for the last 3 days. The workstation tests were basically on the body task or whatever task that includes some actions to be performed at shoulder level or higher. Yes, at the end of the week or whenever the worker wanted to conclude the usage, we directly administrated usability and acceptability questionnaires to operators who have tried the exoskeleton clearly, and we collected their suggestion to improve the device. Usability and acceptability questionnaire investigates aspects like how effective the workers feel the device for his task, if it is easy to use for him or not, or which are the pros and the cons of the device. And moreover, if he would use the device during his usual activity, or if he feels that the device helps in being more precise at work. And to do that, we generally use the Likert scale so that the operator can say if he agrees, completely agrees, or not with some sentences. So, as overview, the tests were performed in 6 Italy plants, using at the same time, simultaneously, 25 made devices. The operators included in the voluntary rollout were 135 in 84 different workstations. And so basically, as takeaway for any investigation into the applicability into industrial application, we highlight the importance of testing with operators, as well as the importance of the selection of the right task for each kind of exoskeleton, because only by selecting the right application, the benefit of the device can be really perceived. And moreover, regarding upper limbs exoskeleton, also in general, thanks to the operator's feedback, we can say which are the device feature to be improved or to be focused on. And these are wearability, weight, breathability, and shape of the device in itself. So to conclude, really, when results and impact on automotive industry can be promising, but only being aware of the challenges still open and the importance of assessing, besides productivity, quality, and flexibility, also human exoskeleton interaction device usability and acceptability. From my side, that's all, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chiara. Excellent. Good job, as usual. And since we are 5 minutes late, I quickly give the word to Robert Fox and Ryan Porto from General Motors.
Okay,
Go
thank
ahead.
you very much. Thank you very much. We'll try and catch things up here a little bit.
No problem, Bob. Take your time.
Okay, Ryan and I will be talking about our application experience of exoskeletons at General Motors. Okay, and we really have this divided into two short sections. Ryan, next slide. We're going to be looking at the powered exoskeletons first, and which I'll be talking about, and then Ryan will be talking about the passive exoskeletons. And our powered exoskeleton is the Iron Hand. Now, a little bit of detail about this. Back about 15 years ago, General Motors had a cooperative agreement between an advanced robotics group and NASA, and they worked on a project related to what they called the Robonaut, which was a robotic type device that could be used for space applications. There were some spin-offs from that Robonaut technology, and one of them was called a RoboGlove. And I worked, and Ryan and I worked a little bit on this going back, about 10, 12 years ago on this. Now, just several years ago, General Motors decided to get a partner and to commercialize some of that technology with BioServo of Sweden. And the name since that time has been Iron Hand. So BioServo, GM holds some of the patents on it. BioServo has been commercializing the technology, and we have been working closely with them. So we started evaluating the prototype units at multiple assembly plants with many trials, where an operator would have the chance to use it for several hours or up to about 2 days. We recruited team members for a longitudinal study with BioServo supporting on site. There were trial areas within our general assembly, our body, powertrain, material handling, stamping, and end-of-line operations. And we were able to collect data on the cycles, also with our questionnaires, subjective team member feedback, information on product rating and comfort surveys, and then some studies, extensive studies on EMG, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the structure of it was all voluntary. The plants were very, very cooperative with us. We selected appropriate jobs for this and recruited members, and management and implementation is still a work in progress. Now, a little bit on the usage status. The usage has exceeded 1,000 team member shifts. We have individual operators who have used the device for over 500 hours. That's been very good to get durability information on it. And we're about 500,000 usage cycles with it. Okay, now the assessment strategies. There was subjective feedback from the team members, which were collected by questionnaires. As I mentioned, we went through actually several iterations of the questionnaires. There was one for our initial studies and then for our longitudinal studies. The survey data was used, reviewed for product improvements and ergonomic assessments. There was an EMG field study that was done, and it was an 8-hour study. And it was done on actual jobs in the plants, one day with the subject without the glove and 1 day with the glove on the assembly line. And these were experienced operators that had been using the Iron Hand for a period of time, generally for months. And the EMG data was collected on 8 subjects. Now, the data analysis is ongoing. We really can't present any results here, but we've been using it to make a deeper dive on what task elements the glove most contributed to. We've tried to analyze the subtasks within the job cycle. Again, and also identification of the jobs. This information is feeding into how we can identify jobs that are best suited for Iron Hand use, as it supplements the grasp. The analysis of the EMG studies is kind of directing us to additional studies and also the product improvements, and also looking at the comprehensive assessment of the glove design, the usability and performance. So durability right from the very beginning was a very big concern for us, the use and the operation of the glove. And the glove allows us with its software to capture force time history capabilities and offer potential significant exposure methodologies. Now, BioServo has incorporated the 2018 ACGIH TLV for HAL into its software. It has also incorporated the key indicator method into its software, and it's looking at additional things as well. Now, I had a conference with BioServo just the other day, and we were talking about some questions related to the TLV for HAL and also to Duet, which is a distal upper extremity tool that based on fatigue failure theory that they are looking at as well, is incorporating. The way that the device collects information is actually a very good platform for some of these assessment techniques, if we can work out some of the details. Okay, next slide. Now, our challenges and our next steps, and I thought it was very interesting that Martin went through some of the same sorts of things, highlighted some of the same sorts of things. I think just about anyone who's worked with exoskeletons in industry has probably come across a similar experience. But the time required for donning and doffing, the iron hand or any exoskeleton at the start or the end of the shift or breaks, whatever, is always a concern. The quicker, the better. The storage and security and hygienic aspects of the exoskeleton is a concern. How they're stored, how they're managed, how they're checked. You know, are they stored in personal lockers, line side, team leader lockers, etc. If we look at long cycle or highly variable jobs, the glove may only benefit a single element of the job, and that also has been pointed out. It's something that the operators take into consideration. Also, issues just in the industrial environment with things like operator turnover, with job changes, job rotation, etc., introduces a particular challenge to us. Now, with the RoboGlove, the Iron Hand, 2 gloves have to be worn. There's the Iron Hand glove itself and an outer glove, so that does affect dexterity to a degree, although there have been some improvements with that, handling small parts, fasteners, weld nuts, things like that. Again, with the backpack, the weight reduction and thermal comfort issues as well. And they may be more severe at different times of the year, the heat that's generated, etc., the sweating. We've focused on identifying the tasks and subtasks which are best suited for glove use with EMG analysis and the ergonomic risk scores, and also continuous improvement. And I think with many of the exoskeletons, we've seen this, the models change, the features change a lot in response to the feedback received from users. So durability, fit, and functionality are constantly improving. Okay, Ryan.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for inviting us. I'm going to take over for passive exoskeletons and some of the work GM has done mainly with the passive shoulder exos. So our evaluation criteria starting off is always been a joint process with our union counterpart, UAW GM. We sent out a survey to all the plants and asking to identify this jobs with a significant amount of time spent overhead, generally greater than 1/3 of the cycle. We use IE screening tools to identify those, and previously, before exoskeletons, we have our secondary analysis on those jobs without exos to determine their acceptability. And there's rotation also used amongst teams to lower the time spent on overhead jobs. We use trials and participation in longitudinal study. It all remains voluntary for exoskeleton usage. We then distributed an exoskeleton to each plant and provided training generally by me and a vendor of choice inside the plant. We track the implementation across all the plants in the US, collecting via long-term usage data, worker feedback, product evaluations, and questionnaires. We found that certain exoskeletons have been better for certain tasks or environments, for inside car in comparison to others. To just really has the ease of ingress and egress may be better. The risk of mutilation, certain exos are better suited for paint shop. Generally, they can adapt to covers pretty well or tooling pouchers. And then, of course, we share issues and suggestions with the suppliers and across all of our plants. Just to kind of give you an overview about how many we have, US about 75. There is some one test going on in Canada, and we have just started in South America. Data collected similarly to the Iron Hand Active Exoskeleton, EMG, has started out. Of course, we started with subjective team member feedback early on and with some product rating and comfort surveys. Structure is site dependent, really, depending on rotation and some other factors I'll talk about in the next slides. Trial evaluation phase and management implementation as such with Iron Hand is still a work in progress for the passive shoulder. Just to touch on some of the assessment strategies over the last 2 years, EMG and posture analysis is currently underway, being collected at Horia Assembly Plant in Michigan. We started that early in the year. There's been a little bit of delay on that due to COVID. Similar with the Iron Hand as well, we have done 8 hours with and without exoskeleton usage. We've also collected motion capture data online for the full 8 hours with and without, and that's been allowing us to do full simulation of tasks and not just single elements. We're able to combine the EMG data with the joint angles and speed and time sync it with EMG. Some of the challenges and processes for a process, like several people have talked about today. Wide range of product for us. We have trucks, we have SUVs, crossovers, and cars, and now we're getting into electric vehicles. So depending on which plant you go to, it can be completely different variety of tasks. As I said, overhead work varies from plant to plant, depending on vehicle height, adjustability, and really facility issues. Job rotation has big challenges in trying to standardize the rollout process. You could have a site that doesn't really implement rotation at all, and you can have a site that rotates every hour to 2 hours. So it really has impacted rotation schedule, rotation pattern, rotation time, and donning and doffing definitely brings several challenges when we're rotating jobs, especially in between breaks, or maybe you have a 10-minute downtime, you go to your next job within a team. So it's been difficult to get really good data to support and drive usage requirements and standards across all of our company, just because some of the sites are so different. Building a process in the plants, training, onboarding, following up, service, storage, maintenance, and data collection has been a challenge, and job and team member turnover. Of course, Bob touched on that. That's been our biggest issue. In our environment, workers may constantly apply for another job and tend to leave the overhead jobs. So that has promoted a lack of participants wearing exoskeletons long term, and has been difficult to get for data collection and longitudinal studies. Some of the project challenges I've ran into, subject data is starting to show some trends with fit and comfort. Just seeing some of the exoskeleton updates out there, the top issues for us seem to be related to the arms and the cuff issue, cuff fit. Also fit around the shoulder, contact points, restrictions, some of which we've gathered from the subjective team member feedback. We've seen a lot of improvements over the past 2 years. I would say materials for comfort and heat reduction have drastically improved, and we haven't had as many issues for torso or hip comfort, meaning kind of belt fitting and pressure around the hips. It's been challenging, constant updates and revisions of product by vendors. Exoskeletons products, as you know, are constantly changing. Some updates are too late before onboarding a team member, and that's really important for that first time fit. You really want the best updates, the best padding, the best straps when you start with a new team member to get the best comfort. Of course, as I mentioned before, donning and doffing time, concerns with rotation, kind of that increased time, that increased downtime that could come with it. And we've also found that it seems to be increasing with certain exoskeleton product improvements, meaning the addition of straps, pads, fans, covers, or whatever that may be. We're kind of increasing the seconds and minutes. for donning and doffing. So as I said, the complexity, as it's trending upward with the improvements and updates, the time to take it on and off is. All-in-one sizing capability or custom for each team members. What we mean by that is just an all-in-one kind of set your sizing with one exoskeleton, set your support rating, as opposed to kind of a piece-by-piece exoskeleton where you kind of order it for that team member. As you know, there's different anthropometry, size and weight for many individuals, so it's been a struggle to go with an exoskeleton, whether it's kind of all-in-one sizing, one size fits all, or really to custom fit the operator. Just wanted to mention some of our work that's been in the media, in the news with Iron Hand, mainly a couple podcasts out there, and my contact information as well as Dr. Bob Fox is at the bottom. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Ryan.
Yes, thank you
for the interesting presentation. And you know, I quickly close the experience talk and open the science and standards talk, giving the word to Dr. Benjamin Stein-Hilber.
Hello, can you see me? And can you hear me?
We can hear, but
not see.
Not see. So
you
should share your presentation.
Yes, I do. So
here it is. Okay.
Okay. So, but you cannot see me, right? So maybe there's.
No, we see your presentation.
Okay. Great.
So if you go in presentation mode, maybe it's more visible.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for that short introduction, so that I can open the science section. My name is Benjamin Steinhilber. I'm from the Institute of Occupational and Social Medicine and Health Services Research at the University of Tübingen in Germany. And I would like to talk about an exoskeleton guideline that we developed, and to give you some insights in the research activities of our institute. The name or title of the guideline is the use of exoskeletons in the occupational context for primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention of work-related musculoskeletal complaints. Before I start, here are my conflict of interests. I was involved in 2 studies evaluating the effects of exoskeletons, and both studies have received financial support by industrial partners. So on this slide, you can get some impression about our research activities on exoskeletons. In Tübingen, Germany, we started 2018 with a standardized literature review, and then conducted 2 studies or projects about the effects of passive exoskeletons. And in the beginning of this year, we were able to publish a German guideline about how to use exoskeletons in the context of prevention. And that's actually the topic of my talk. And in the end, I will give you a quick insight view in our current research activities. We are at the moment publishing a systematic review and meta-analysis about the influence of using exoskeletons on acute physical stress and strain. So the background for the guideline, but for all our research activity, are musculoskeletal disorders. You probably all know this, that those kind of disorders are common, and they put a burden on our society, on our healthcare systems, economy, and of course on the affected employees themselves. So they cannot work, they may be impaired in their mobility and other negative effects. And there's a causal contribution of work-related risk factors to the development of MSDs. And here on the lower part of the slide, I show you some examples of those risk factors and how exoskeletons try to address these risk factors. For example, if you have the risk factor prolonged standing, which could lead to lower back pain, then you may use an exoskeleton for the lower limbs and just interrupt the standing, and then you sit down whenever you want. Or you use an exoskeleton in case of lifting and bending to support the lower back, or an exoskeleton supporting the upper extremities when you have overhead work. And of course, there are exoskeletons that try to address multiple of those risk factors at once. But the question is, do exoskeletons really prevent musculoskeletal disorders? And if they have the potential to prevent MSDs, does the effectiveness maybe depend on the performed task or the supported body region or the exoskeleton model? And are exoskeletons useful for every kind of worker, or only in healthy subjects, or maybe especially in subjects that already suffer from MSDs? So there are many open questions, and that's actually the reason why we started pretty soon in the process of developing an exoskeleton guideline. So we developed the guideline at the AWMF. I will come to this in a minute, but before that, I want to show you the target group of this guideline. Target group are healthy employees whose musculoskeletal system should be protected. That's the aspect of primary prevention. But also employees who already suffer from MSD, who shall be prevented from aggravating and manifesting of diseases. That's the aspect of secondary prevention. Or employees also suffering from MSD who should be enabled to regain participation in professional activities. That's the aspect of tertiary prevention. And we think that this guideline is useful for occupational physicians, ergonomists, occupational safety experts, employers, and also all other actors in the practical occupational health and safety. Now, the AWMF is an association of scientific medical societies in Germany. And they are not responsible for the content of a guideline, but they coordinate guidelines, and they provide a framework. And if you decide to develop or write a guideline for the AWMF, you have to stick to a distinct protocol, which mainly depends on the level of the guideline you choose. So for example, there is the lowest level. Step 1 is an expert rating. So that means experts of a specific topic develop some recommendations and publish them. Then you have the S2K level. That means you need to have a representative guideline group, so representative for a specific topic, who vote on the recommendations at the end of the process during an external moderated consensus conference. Then you have the S2E level, where you have to perform a systematic literature search and evidence rating. And the highest level is S3, where you combine a consensus conference and a systematic literature search. So for our guideline, we chose the level S2K. So we had a representative guideline group, and we had, of course, a consensus conference in the end. And in addition, we performed a systematic literature search, but we did not rate the evidence of the publications, because we thought the field of research, exoskeletons for industrial use, may be too young to really find scientific evidence here, and actually that's the case. So let's have a look to our guideline group. You can see the member societies of the guideline group. In the upper part of the slide, we had several medical societies involved in the process, all of them somehow related to the use of exoskeletons. And in the lower part of the slide, we have additional experts from other institutes who were also involved in the process, who were also co-authors, but from an official sense, they had more an advisory function in the group. And on the next slide, you can see the work we did from December 2017 to April 2020. We started with the constitution of the guideline group, and then we performed our literature search, which is actually the main part of the guideline because we base all our recommendations on this. But in addition, we wanted to get some experience from companies and exoskeleton manufacturers. Therefore, we conducted a survey. And then we divided our group in work groups and developed the recommendations. And in the end of the process, October 2019, we had this consensus conference and voted on 4 key statements and 20 recommendations. Before I come to the key statements and the recommendations, I will quickly show you a little bit of some of the results of our literature search. We conducted a very broad search, including several databases so that we actually had in the beginning more than 6,000 hits, but in the end only 37 publications could be used to derive our recommendations. And there was no study showing that exoskeletons really do prevent musculoskeletal disorders. And there are a lot of studies that have to be rated with as high as a low methodological quality. So therefore, our recommendations are based only on the effects of exoskeletons on changes in physical stress and strain. And of course, we gained some further information from our surveys, but as you can see, only 7 companies replied and only 1 exoskeleton manufacturer replied and gave feedback to how to use the exoskeletons. So here just some examples, because all the recommendations and key statements are already published. You can download this. I will give you the link in a minute. Just an example how it looks like. So we here have a key statement where we wanted to point out that there's currently no scientific evidence for a preventive effect of exoskeleton on musculoskeletal complaints or musculoskeletal diseases. And at the lower part of the statement or the recommendation, you always see some kind of justification. Here it is because there are no longitudinal studies showing that exoskeletons really do prevent musculoskeletal complaints or diseases. It does not mean that exoskeletons are not preventive, but it means that at the moment there is no scientific evidence for that. And here an example for one recommendation. So we recommend that exoskeletons, or when you use exoskeletons, the process should be monitored, especially by occupational physicians, and employees should be interviewed regularly, and they should be offered a physical examination, because there are studies not only showing that there's a reduction of physical demands in the target area that is supported by the exoskeleton. There are also studies showing that the physical load can increase in other body areas, and so therefore it is important to monitor this. So within the preparation of this guideline, we had several challenges I want to show you. So first of all is that there is no scientific evidence for our recommendations. That makes it a little bit harder. And we have a fast development of this technology. So exoskeletons improved a lot during the last couple of years, and they still improve, and there are a lot of research activities at the moment in progress, and also a lot of tests in companies, so that we can expect that there will be more knowledge within the next couple of years. Therefore, we decided to update the guideline already after 2 to 3 years, and not as commonly done after 5 to 6 years. Here you can see I provided the links for the German original guideline, of course in German language, but we already published an extended English summary, which you can get from this link here at the lower part of the slide. So that was it with respect to the exoskeleton guideline. At the end of my presentation, I would like to give you a short insight in our current research activities. So at the moment, as I said in the very beginning, we are working on a systematic review with a meta-analysis on the influence of using exoskeletons on acute physical stress and strain. So we're not interested in musculoskeletal disorders because we know that there are no studies for that. So we were really interested to summarize the scientific state of the art regarding the effect of exoskeletons on acute physical stress and strain. And here are some results, just as an example. You can see how we summarized the literature. We standardized all the effects so that we can combine and summarize these effects in a so-called forest plot. And here you see the reduction in muscular activity by exoskeleton that support the upper extremities for all muscles that are involved in shoulder elevation. And when you look on the right side of the slide, the vertical line, so each point that is right from that vertical line shows that the exoskeleton reduces muscle activity. So actually that's what it's intended. And in the sum, you see that black diamond at the lower part, you can see that this effect becomes significant. So we can say that exoskeletons really reduce muscle activity in the target region. But if we look to another region, because some studies also investigated the effects in other regions that are not supported, we are still looking on the effects of exoskeletons to support the upper extremities. So here you can see the effect on trunk extension muscle activity. And here we have another picture. You see that most of the studies have to point left to the vertical line, and in some, this effect becomes significant, meaning that there's an increase in muscle activity in another body area. At the moment, we still don't know what it means. Is that really important, or does it not matter? But it is really interesting, and I think we should keep an eye on that, and maybe also learn from that, because there are some studies or exoskeletons that are showing that there's no such side effect. So let me come to my conclusion. I would like to say that systematic reviews and especially guidelines are very important to summarize the scientific state of the art. And it's a way to transfer scientific knowledge to professional practice. And it also is a way to identify research gaps or new fields of research. And with these words, I would like to thank you very much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you, Benjamin. Now, since we have received, in the chat, many messages of people with the problems in, viewing the slides, I want to ensure everybody that all the presentations will be loaded on the eaws.it website, from which you can download all the material. So thank you very much, Benjamin. And quickly, I give the word to Borislav Marinov. So please, you can share your presentation. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm sure that I can get through this in 5 minutes or less. So I want to talk to you about the ASTM International Exotechnology Center of Excellence and its first round of research to standards projects. In a nutshell, ASTM is a standards organization with more than 100 years of history. It has thousands of members internationally with many published standards used throughout industries. What makes ASTM different and relevant to the EXO technology field is that it's one organization, has one vote, regardless of the size of the organization. In 2017, ASTM founded the Committee F48 on exoskeletons and exosuits to address safety, quality, performance, ergonomics, and terminology for exotechnology. At this point, it has more than 170 members from 16 countries. F48 focuses on all aspects of the exoskeleton industry. So that's industrial, medical, military, emergency responder and consumer devices, and passive and active systems. Now in 2019, ASTM and F48 created the Exotechnology Center of Excellence. The main mission statement for that is to pursue safe and reliable exotechnology for humanity. So the main purpose of the Center of Excellence is to accelerate research to standards work. In March of 2017, there was a request for a proposal from the Center of Excellence with a total budget of about $120,000 that was divided between 4 winners. The timeline is 9 months, but obviously with COVID-19, that's going to change. So now we are looking more at 1 year. The goal is to advance new standards, revise existing standards, or address lagging work items. Originally, the request for proposal had the intent to focus on safety and promoting safe practices, how to objectively measure the performance and reliability of exotechnology, how to determine the proper fit of the technology and the right user for the right task, what process should be used to achieve that, how does the community share data and innovation, and how do we bring down barriers to adoption. So clearly these are all topics that we already heard throughout today's seminar. The 4 projects that were selected were by the teams from University of Massachusetts Lowell, the University of Michigan, Texas Tech University, and Vanderbilt University. And this is in no particular order, this is just in alphabetical order. Jumping right in it, the first project is the development and standardization of exoskeleton test methods for mobility on variable terrains. So this is by University of Massachusetts Lowell, the New England Robotics Validation and Experimentation Center, or NERV, and it's led by Assistant Professor Pei-Chan Kao and Assistant Director Adam Norton. So as was already mentioned repeatedly, we have a lot of test data in labs, but that's a treadmill or a flat surface. Lower body exoskeletons, be it for occupational or medical use, sooner or later will have to contend with slopes, bricks, cobblestones, sand, gravel, stairs, inclines, and clearing obstacles going around corners and curves. And how do we measure the effectiveness of an exoskeleton device to be able to navigate this? So the expected deliverables of this project is a literature review of the common techniques for evaluating exoskeleton mobility that are already available, and the design and creation of apparatuses and metrics that can be reproduced to evaluate exoskeletons. So this could be an obstacle course, it could be a sand pit, it could be a shower pool of water. We're also looking for a protocol on integrating the human exoskeleton user in the test procedure, and a draft standard with all relevant supporting data and designs. The second project that is being funded by the Center of Excellence is test method definition for lower extremity exoskeleton locomotion transition. This is by University of Michigan, and the leaders are Professor Leah Sterling, Professor Robert Craig, and Professor Elliot Ross. So you can think of this as an extension of the previous project, where the previous project looked at how exoskeletons are handling various rough terrains. This is only going to focus on how an exoskeleton transitions from one terrain to another, for transitioning from a flat terrain to stairs, from flat to curve, from a flat terrain to sand or gravel. Similarly, literature review is going to be conducted, obstacles are going to be designed, and a definition or even the creation of brand new metrics relative to this topic are going to be made. For anyone that saw the Cybathlon 2 weeks ago, the winning exoskeleton teams were the ones that were able to quickly transition between the different obstacles. The third project is towards the development of test methods and measures for evaluating cognitive fit of exoskeletons. This is by Texas Tech University, the Applied Cognition and Safety Lab, and it's led by Assistant Professor Hee-San Choi. The focus here is that we can never really separate the exoskeleton or the wearable robot from the user. But what is the effect on their cognitive fit, on their attention? Are they being distracted by having an exoskeleton? We are looking here to create some test measures and some test protocols, and this will be using self-reported measures, recorded performance, and eye tracking measures. Last but not least is the project for development of a new exoskeleton safety standard for assessing user fall risk due to stumbling. This is by Vanderbilt University, and it's led by Assistant Professor Karl Zelik and Michael Godfarb. So the idea here is, sooner or later, people wearing exoskeletons are going to stumble. And we need to know, how does the exoskeleton affect stumble recovery? Is it going to help? Is it going to hurt? And how can we evaluate and certify it? The idea is to use a treadmill that alternatively delivers steel blocks on the left or right side. The user with the exoskeleton is not able to perceive when the obstacle is being added. This has already been tested with prosthetic work, and it's just a matter of applying that already existing test methodology to exoskeletons. That concludes my slides, and you can see that there's a common theme in safety and usability for the projects that were chosen.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you very much for the clarity and the speed, to recover the delay. So I appreciate that. So that we can have still some time for the question and answers. So I ask the central office, which are the most interesting questions we received.
Yes, there is the first question is about the EXO-EAWS project. I think there is a lack of clarity in the regard of current ergonomic findings, in particular contradiction with the guideline of the Association of the Scientific Medical Society in Germany. What can you tell me about this?
Okay. Well, considering the content, I would kindly ask Professor Francesco Violante if you can take this question, please, Francesco.
Yeah, actually, we would say that as a scientific committee of the Fondazione Ergo, we don't see contradiction with the German guideline of the Association of Scientific Medical Societies. The key messages of this document can be translated into the project. One of the key messages is that the hierarchy of occupational health and safety must be maintained with the use of exoskeleton. And of course, we fully agree with this statement, and in the report of the ESO EAWS project, there is absolutely no contrary statement to this key message. And the second key message is that the preventive effect of exoskeleton on musculoskeletal disorders cannot be justified on the basis of current state of scientific knowledge and experience from professional practice. This is a statement from the guideline of the Association of Scientific Medical Society we fully agree with. And in my presentation and also in the report, we talked about exoskeleton as supporting devices, not preventing devices. So devices which can ease the task, can reduce fatigue, can make a demanding task more acceptable to the worker, but not as preventive devices. There is not enough information to date for this claim. Of course, we welcome further studies on the effectiveness of exoskeleton in preventing MSDs, but this is not something which can be said for the time being.
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you for the clear answer.
The second question yes, the second question is about the EAWS system. So is the EAWS system a recognized system, and what is the worldwide diffusion?
Oh, well, you know, I take the first part of the question. You know, I would reply with another question: who is entitled to recognize a system? But if we take the ISO standards, which are probably the most you know, referenced and used standards, you know, EAWS was released and launched on the market in 2008. So the you know, older standards, of course, do not consider EAWS, because at that time, you know, when they were published, EAWS didn't exist. But in the last years, EAWS was recognized, let's say, by several working groups in ISO and CEN, especially the working group working on biomechanics. And if you know, there are some technical reports mentioning EAWS, and so I love to say that the best recognition of EAWS is paid by the companies, by the users, since today we have several multinational industrial groups using EAWS as the global standard for improving the work and the workstations in the factories. But regarding the second part, the adoption, I would ask quickly, you know, Martin, Chiara, and Bob, if they can add any figure, any additional information about the adoption of EAWS. Martin, do you want to take first
Yes, I will.
The answer?
Thank you for the question, Gabriele. Yes, well, I have to give you two answers. First of all, within the brands of Volkswagen commercial vehicles, and our component companies, we are using EAWS very widely, almost in all of the brands. However, we have many other brands that have joined the Volkswagen Group, you know, with their own historical background. So there are some other methods in use as well, but it is our intention to harmonize the different methods to be able to have one common standard, and there we do in fact intend to use EAWS, and we depend on the use of EAWS and the further development of EAWS in the future.
Thank you, Martin, for the quick and precise reply. And Chiara, do you want to
Yeah. In FCA, I would say that the EAWS is fully used in all the phases of the product development. And indeed, the method is used together with MTM UAS to determine the standard time of each workstation. Furthermore, the Ergo US system is also present in our collective labor agreement since 2010, so 10 years ago. To do all that within the company, we have all around 130 people who have taken the course and 6 instructors. So I would say it's a full adoption.
Thank you, Chiara. And Bob, what about you in General Motors? Do you have any case or experience with EAWS?
No, we have not used EAWS. I think that it has been touched on by some of the other automotive manufacturers in the U.S. In conjunction, those with FCA and et cetera, that have used it somewhat. EAWS, and it's interesting because when we were working on the TR on recovery allowances, and I had some conversation with some of the standard time data folks within General Motors and somewhat outside, and their perceptions of EAWS were rather negative at that time. And we have developed some of our own work allowance factors that we use with our standard time data. Many of those are proprietary and very, very specific. I think, though, that in some of the last conversations that I've had, as we went through the various drafts of that TR, that I think the line began to soften on that, and that I think that this may be looked at some more in the future among some of the automotive manufacturers.
Thank you very much, Bob. We have still 3 minutes for a last question. Do we have another question you can share with us, Rachele?
Yes, maybe the most interesting is about active exoskeleton. The question is, what do you think are the developments of active exoskeletons, and what is your forecast of expected degree of adoption within factory in 3 and 5 years?
Well, this is a question for no doubt, for Jesus. So, Jesus, you want to take this question, please?
Yes. So thank you for the question. So this is interesting. Also, active exoskeletons, they are of course more challenging, not only technically but also from the point of view of the regulations. And also from the cost point of view. So there are different factors that determine their adoption. No? So as we can see now, there is an increasing interest in companies, not only big companies, but also smaller medium enterprises, and this is something that is growing. So I expect that in the next year, 3 to 5 years, we will start seeing the implementation of these systems. And also there are maybe more more commercial products that are getting closer to the market. So I think within the 3 to 5 next years, we will start seeing some real implementation of these systems. But maybe a more wider application should be expected a bit later.
Thank you, Jesus. Well, since we are, we come from the MTM group, we want to be very precise. We measure time in TMUs, and we are about 16,000 TMUs, late, so 10 minutes. So I would close this interesting seminar or symposium. I hope that you could enjoy the content, and I want to thank especially the speakers who gave their availability for our event. Again, one more time, you will be able to download the presentations of this event from the eaws.it webpage, which is a page dedicated to to the EAWS system, and from which you can download the system and all the related research activities and projects. So thank you again very much, and see you next time. Bye bye. Take care.